Hello everyone and welcome back to Building Nations. We are here once again in the Making Your Ideas area where we have a comment from St1inson_ with a little bit of help from Yes. The original comment was, to get into the spirit of Halloween, I would like to suggest a graveyard, complete with hidden catacombs and maybe some spooky zombies and ghosts. Well, saying you would like to suggest something isn't actually suggesting it. But luckily, Yes came in to save the day, saying, if he's not going to, I will. I suggest a graveyard. And that is what we're going to be doing today. Now you may notice that we are in a slightly different location, and there's a reason for that. There were a lot of builds in the other world, and they were going to spread a large distance. I didn't know how large they were going to spread and if they would need to interfere with any of the other things I was planning on making in that world. So, I decided to use the power of World Edit to copy all these over into this new world where we will be building the Making Your Ideas things from now on, just so that the other one doesn't get too crowded too quickly. The builds that are in that world will be staying in that world, just because I think they're a nice piece of history. So if you feel bad about that your build isn't featured in the old world, then I'm sorry. But I think this is the best decision overall to make for these builds. But anyway, let's get into a graveyard just as the moon is rising, which is the perfect time. Alright, so again, the first thing you need to do is choose an area, and I chose this area because I thought it'd be cool to make a little cliff that I could stick like a mausoleum or something on, and there was already a cave there that I was going to use to make the catacombs. So that is why I chose this location. The terrain's varied, it's looking nice, and now I just have to terraform it to fit my needs. So the cliff terraforming is the beginning part, and really the main part of this in general. And since I've done cliff terraforming before, you can watch one of the old World Builder episodes. I think it's probably called something like Cliff Terraforming or Terraforming the Cliffs or something like that, because that's how I title things. So there's that. But again, as I like to do in a lot of these episodes, is talk about things that have happened to me or things that I find interesting. And this is no exception to that rule. Because I feel something happened to me recently, right? Someone said something to me and I just think about it. Like, I don't even intend to be thinking about it, and I find myself thinking about what they said. And it's an interesting situation. Has that happened to any of you ever? Or you're just like, someone says something to you, just passing in conversation, and like, that night you're trying to go to sleep and you just can't because you're thinking about it that whole time. That's what happened to me. That's also part of the reason this video is delayed, because I didn't want to build anything because I was too busy thinking about it. It's just an interesting situation. Very interesting. So I'm just curious, has anything like that ever happened to you? And why did you stop to think about it? I'll tell you why I did. It's just a very personal thing. It challenged beliefs that I held, and I didn't disagree with it. So, because of that, it just made me think, like, do I need to change my beliefs? Or is there another reason that why my beliefs are more correct? You know? And that I also use that as an example of cognitive dissonance, which is something that I really like. I like the term and I like what it stands for because I see it happening in myself a lot. And with that, I can determine in myself, like, oh, this is cognitive dissonance. When your beliefs don't line up with your behavior, there are different ways to respond to that. But the state of tension that's created when your beliefs don't line up with your behavior is called cognitive dissonance. And I think it's really cool. Because I see it in myself. You can either change your beliefs, change your behavior, or rationalize your behavior to fit into your beliefs, which is what I tend to do for the most part. Because it works for me, so that I'm not existing in a state of tension anymore. Because that isn't particularly comfortable. And that state of tension, the rationalizing period, is part of why I think about things over a long period of time. And maybe that's probably why you do it also. But maybe you just don't realize that. It's always good to analyze your own internal thoughts and processes to come to a better conclusion about yourself and to grow as a human being. And that's all that I'm trying to do. And really, that's what anybody should be trying to do. Except for, like, Gandhi or something. I don't know. He's pretty perfect. I don't know how much he really needs to grow. Uh, so, yeah, just, I don't know, things to keep in mind. From someone that's probably not qualified to talk to you about things like personal growth, but that's fine. I'm sure that what I'm saying isn't entirely incorrect, even by other standards. But anyway, on to the actual building here. You may notice that a lot of things have happened in between those two cuts, and that's entirely my fault. I made some mistakes. You see, I did that, all the terraforming, oh, not the terraforming, but all the replacing of blocks there with world edit, and I just didn't hit the record button when I did it. So, you can see what's there. I used some world edit brushes. The paint brush set to cylinder to make the path, and I did the same thing with a mask of grass blocks to fill the rest in with podzol and coarse dirt. And I really like the ground here to begin with. It just really sets the stage for making the rest of the build look really good. So that's why I did that. I like that. What I'm building right now is a mausoleum, which is like an above ground grave, but it has like a little building around it. Usually in like modern days, they're not this like ornate for the most part. Usually just like a little square building with like the family name on it, and that's it. But I decided to do a little more because it is, after all, a spooky graveyard to get into the Halloween spirit. And, of course, you can't have a graveyard without graves, so gotta add those in also. And it was an interesting part, because, like, you can only build the same design so many times, right? So I tried to keep it varied and interesting throughout, and I think I did a good job. Like, you can't really tell. I mean, for the most part, just like looking around, you see, oh look, this is a bunch of different graves. That's cool. I didn't put any signs or anything on them just because that would be too complicated, but I did try my best to make them all look unique. Anyway, it's now time to make the catacombs, which, although the comments said they were supposed to be hidden, I didn't remember that because this was like a day after I actually made them to begin with. Like, this is like the second day after I started the graveyard, so I didn't remember exactly what the comment said, but I do now, so thanks for post. But it's not entirely hidden, but I'd like to think that I made them spooky nonetheless, which is the entire point after all. So I'm trying to put in some like graves in here because that's what a catacombs is, though the spectator account here, because I'm playing with gamma up, doesn't really show the spookiness because like you don't get to see like all the graves. I made one grave open because you know, spooky. The lighting in there is a lot more ominous, and so are the cobwebs when viewed without gamma up and with shaders, which is what we will be doing very shortly for the end of the episode. But first, the graveyard was looking kind of empty and boring, so I decided to add in some standard spooky trees, no leaves, so many scraggly branches everywhere, which are really weird for me to make, and a new experience, but that's really what this whole series is about. Stuck some cobwebs on them to add to the spookiness, and there are lanterns, which I don't know if you can really see, but the lanterns on the trees are the only lights that exist in this place. So that's why they're like adding to the spookiness, the ambience of the area, and it just looks really good. I really like the area, which I will say a lot very shortly. Decided to do a little more detailing on the entryway to the catacombs, and an interior with no door. I realize that now. I should have put a door on the building. I didn't think about it. And for the final view, as per usual now, I'm going to be doing it with shaders, and this is what it looks like. Very spooky. I really like it. I wasn't sure, like going into this, I thought it was going to be like a lot more difficult and not as much reward as it actually is now, like looking at it. And I think I did a pretty good job. I actually really like this build overall. The mausoleum here looking very nice. I like the detail work that I did on it, especially in the inside here. Nice and spooky. And really, like, you can't really get the full effect unless you play with shaders, honestly. Because, I mean, the way the lighting is done is what makes it spooky. The fact that it's only in the trees, you don't get any lighting on the ground, so it's a lot more difficult to see in areas like this, which is intentional. Down here in the mausoleum, it's pretty well lit actually. I can probably just knock that lantern out, and honestly I can knock that one out also. Yeah. Maybe, actually, what if I just did one lantern there, and then knock that guy out? Yeah, it's gonna be better, I think, overall. Yeah, like the spookiness, the little skull head in the back, or just skull, I guess, because skull head is kind of redundant. But yeah, I really like this. I think it came together really well. And in terms of a spooky graveyard, it's probably really good. I think it's really good for me. Obviously, the spook factor is kind of diminished by the giant French horn and the kneeling Cyclops, but you know, for what it is on its own here, the graveyard itself is really good. And I had fun building it. I thought it was going to take way longer than it actually did. Maybe that's because I didn't put a lot of effort into it. No, I'm just kidding. There's effort, but, you know, I feel like other people would do more effort. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what else I could really add to this, realistically. Like, I haven't been to many graveyards. Or at least, I think, have I? I've been to at least one that I can remember. To, like, see the graves of family members. But I don't know, like, it wasn't like this. It wasn't supposed to be like a spooky graveyard. It was just like a during the day sad time kind of thing. Uh, so, yeah, not really sure on that. But I think I nailed the look. We got the nice catacombs here for all the rich people that get buried underground, and the mausoleum for the one guy that got buried. And I really like it. I really like it. I know I've said that a lot, but it's true. It is cool. This is probably one of my favorite builds now. Of this area, honestly, the cool tower is probably my favorite build, and this is probably second. Cool tower, then this. Probably the French horn next, then the tree, then the Cyclops, if I'm being honest. That's my tier list of the builds that I've made in this world so far, and I'm sure I'll add more to that in the future. But until next time, remember to leave your ideas in the comment section on either this episode or the next episode of Building Nations. And if your comment gets the most likes, it will be built in this world 2 weeks from, actually not 2 weeks from today, like a week and 6 days from when this goes up. So keep that in mind when making your comment. And I'm going to leave this here. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the comment, any feedback you have for me, and I'll see all of you later. Bye.